Mary to lead us in the pledge.
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'd like to welcome you all to one of our budget meetings this evening. And we'll begin with item 2.1, which is a review of the 22-23 budget recap and timeline. I think Mr. Dugas.
Yes. The budget timeline is attached. There are no changes. Basically, our next meeting, which is optional, will be April 19th, and the board will need to decide at the end of this meeting if they would like to have that meeting or not. On April 25th, we will present all the budgets, hopefully in a finalized form, to be sent for public advertisement and inspection, to be approved on May 11th at a public hearing before the May board meeting.
Thank you, Matt. Moving on to item 2.2, a preliminary report, general fund budget summary, projections, revenues. Mr. Trosclair or Matt, one of you wants to? We're going to try to take action on this item, or some of the.
Okay. So the item attached is set up in rows. So the row on the left, which tell you exactly what line item we're on, because it is a long report. So that's just kind of keep us on track. We first start off with the balance sheet and the fund balance, which we're beginning at 66.7 million. I'm going to just go to the highlights of the major three revenue items and some of the assumptions that were made in those revenue items. For the sales tax revenue, we have assumed a 0.5 increase over fiscal year 22 actual through the November collection. So it does not include the Christmas collections or after that. So we added 0.5 to the budgetary amounts after that point, but we took it to actual as we had it through November. The property tax revenue, the budget assumption is a 1% increase over fiscal year 22 actual through January and projected after that. MFP is a projection based on last year's MFP per student times the projected student count for fiscal year 23. This currently doesn't include the $1,500 raise for teachers or the $750 raise for personnel that is going to the legislature. If those raises are passed by the legislature, the MFP and associated cost of the raises will be adjusted in a budget, and that will offset itself. So it doesn't really have any effect on the current budget because it'll be an offset. Indirect cost, which is line 37, indirect costs reflects a conservative estimate of the indirect cost revenues relating to the ESSER funding. We note that about $2 million of this ESSER funding, which will be one-time funds, will need to be used for one-time expenditures, as further explained in the section of the budget summary. So we don't want to put non-recurring revenues into recurring expenses. So you'll see we've sent that money to one-time places so we don't have what we call a fiscal cliff once ESSER money ends. So that's basically the revenue section in a nutshell. Any questions on the revenue section?
Mr. Angel, I have a question.
Yes, Doc.
Mr. Duga, are you anticipating a change in the number of charter school students in the district?
Yes.
Okay, would you elaborate on whether it's up or down and the cost to the district?
That's a later item we're going to go after. That's about 1,382,000. We're expecting an increase of about 150 students, that yet is an estimate. What we do is you take we've contacted the charter schools. We've gotten their the expected number of students that they're going to increase, and then we multiplied historically by the percentage of that is from Lafayette Parish, which ranges in the range of about 80%. Because we only get charged for the students that have Lafayette Parish residences. So that is in the MFP, but it is also, we're asking it's for an increase in that amount transferred to charter schools.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. LeBeau.
One question. I see the J ROTC or NJ ROTC numbers. Is there an Army ROTC allotment that's also given, or is that FEMA number?
No, it may say in, but it's everything.
It's all the ROTC combined. And then you said there's you're anticipating 150 students increase from,
Yes.
like, transferring from the charter school?
Yeah, increase, I think they're adding some grades at some
Okay.
of the schools. So we
Yeah.
contacted all the charter schools and got their projections of what their student enrollment might be, and then multiplied it out, put times the per
But
student.
increase
to
to us or increase to the charter school?
the charter schools,
Okay,
which is
that's
a
what I thought.
decrease
Okay.
to us.
That's what I was confused on that. Thank you so much.
And that's the local revenue portion. They also get the state portion, which goes directly to them. But the local portion comes from us, and unfortunately, when our sales tax goes up as it is, the percentage of funding provided locally becomes larger, so the amount that goes from the local funds to the charter school also becomes larger.
Mrs. Truster, this is the item where we would like to discuss, Mr. Latchley, you want the floor?
I'd like to make a motion
Sure.
that the board approves the staffing portion of the proposed 2022-2023 general fund budget summary line items 52 to 73 and authorizes administration to move forward with school-related staffing hiring process for fiscal year 23.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment? Any board member comment on this motion? Yes, ma'am.
I know we're only voting on numbers, but by voting on this, we're not affecting the fact that we can change the language of what would qualify as a high teacher demand stipend, or what we're going to include within the parameters of that.
No, ma'am,
correct?
those items that you're referencing are different items on the agenda and not
Yeah.
included in this
So
general
we're just voting
fund.
on the allocation, whether
Yes,
that
ma'am.
differs or not. Thank
Yes.
you.
Any other comments?
Mr.
Yes, sir, Dr.
Mr.
Aguilar.
Lashley, could you read over the lines that are applicable to this motion? You said rows, lines 52 through 57?
I think it's 70-something.
73.
73.
52 through 73. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Centeni.
Mr. President, I'd like to offer a substitute motion that the board approves the staffing portion of the proposed 2022-2023 general fund budget summary line items 52 to 73, except lines 55 and 56, and authorizes administration to move forward with the school-related staffing hiring process for fiscal year 23.
Okay, you heard the substitute motion. Do we have, I'm
And
sorry.
I'll just say what 55 and 56 are.
Okay.
Those are the reclass items.
We have a second for the substitute motion. Substitute motion dies for lack of a second. We'll move on to the original motion then. Any other comments from members of the board on the original motion?
Well, he wants me to read them, and I'm gonna do my best because it's awful small.
I agree with you there.
Sorry about
Huh?
that.
Oh, I got it. I've increased it. 52 is 2% inflation adjustment to salary pay scale. 53 is additional 4.7% adjusted, total 6.7% crafts and trades pay scale. 54 is high demand returning teacher stipends. 55 is reclass business services offset by indirect costs. See rows 37, no net effect on the general fund, Schedule 1. 56, reclass other employees, see Schedule 2. 57, employee services, insurance staff, corrective action plan for internal control audit finding, in parentheses, is 2.5 clerical level staff. 58, school accounting, corrective action plan for internal control audit finding, in parentheses, +2 floating school activity funds clerk, elementary and middle. 59, transformation zone director, cost center expenses, materials, conference, whatever WS stands for, new cost center.
Workshop.
60, Lafayette High School athletic expense off-campus home games due to construction. 61, school resource officers, 2% annual increase and 2 additional SROs, that would be at La Rosa and central office. 62 is staff and custodians, adjust to board approved ratio minus 1.5. 63 is staffing, assistant principal, adjust to board approved ratio, minus 1. 64, staffing, regular ed, K to 12, adjust to ratio, plus 9. 65 is staffing, immersion K to 12, adjust to ratio, plus 3. 66, instructional leader, Carencro Heights. 67, staffing appeals, 5 teachers. 68, move 2 teachers from 2002 tax. 69, dean of students, Acadian Middle. 70 is instructional leader, Southside. 71, Lafayette High School athletic trainer, 20% additional pay. 72, David Thibodeau athletic trainer. Oh, that minus 20%, or no, 20% additional pay. There's your items. No, it's.
Any other
Yeah.
questions or comments?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Smith, some
Okay,
patience.
so we had a second motion on the floor.
Ma'am?
We had a second sub-motion, substitute motion. Okay.
It
Oh,
died.
it's failed.
The
It's
the
too late.
substitute motion
It's too late
failed.
for
We're
me
on the
to second
original
that.
motion now.
You can do it again.
Okay, so may I make a substitute motion,
Yes,
please?
ma'am, yes, ma'am.
I'd like to do the approval from the original, thank you. Okay, so my substitute motion would be that the board approves the staffing portion of the proposed 2022 to 2023 general fund budget summary line items 52 to 73, with the exception of 55 and 56, which authorizes administration to move forward with the school-related staffing and hiring process for fiscal year 23.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, substitute motion and a second now. Any public comment on the substitute motion? Any board comment on the substitute motion? Yes, ma'am. Ms. LeBou and then Mr. Dr. Chasso. Dr. Chasso?
Is this normally where reclasses go? Normally the reclasses, didn't they used to come before us? Excuse me, incorrect English. In the past, did they not come before us separately, like a reclass meeting, reclass discussion? Reclass, like, we used to meet on these things, right?
No,
Formerly
sir.
in the past?
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Dugas, but those have always been included in the general fund budget portion.
We used to have
My-
large discussions
Excuse
about a,
me, my
about a
my
reclass.
recollection as superintendent was we always brought the reclass item separately for
Right.
board action, not buried in this agenda item down at the bottom without some discussion about the need for the reclass.
If you look back at last year's budget, this same process was when we had a reclass.
I
and
said, while I was superintendent for
Yes.
4 years, we always brought the reclass items separately to the board.
And
What we
it's-
did last year and this year is, Superintendent Trosclair's decision.
And what I was gonna say was, in the past, the reclass committee used to meet a different cycle during the year, and last several years, and even before Ms. Trosclair, it has become part of the budget process. Because some of these I know have been presented several years ago in this same process.
Any other board comment?
I have a
Yes, sir.
I have a
Dr. Aguilar.
question. So in line 6, row 60 says Lafayette High expenses off campus. I'd like, Mr. Jeffers, can you verify that Southside still has money in your budget for traveling for home football games? I didn't hear you say. Good, thank you.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes. Item number 68, move 2 teachers from the 2002 tax. Exactly what does that mean?
Currently, some positions, and in the 2002 sales tax, Fund 15, there are positions and there are people. When the people retire, the people are not replaced in the 2002 sales tax. They need to be moved to the general fund. So this last year, during the budget process, y'all approved 3, and we had 2 people retire that we cannot use the 2002 sales tax to replace them. So we had the money set aside. So we're just preliminary with the tax being 20 years old. We're just trying to be proactive and set the money aside for that retirement.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. LeBou?
I think that while I may not vote in favor of this motion because I believe 55 should not be in question, I understand the proposal. I would like to see it possibly fail and then be reproposed, with the exception of 55.
Yes, sir, Mr. Broussard?
Mr. Gordon is the author for this. 61, school resource officer. Are we footing the whole bill for the school resource officers, or are we sharing the expense with the law enforcement, particularly the sheriff department, or do we foot the whole bill? I thought we was in partnership with the law enforcement agencies in Lafayette.
So we pay a portion of their salary. We don't pay they're employed all year long. We pay for a set rate per officer with a 2% increase each year. That is a portion of their salary. We pay a training fee for each SRO each year, and then we pay an administrative cost to the agency, which is LPSO. But each municipality bills us separately for the number of resource officers and sergeants that they have.
So they get a 2% raise from us and a percentage from their department?
I am not sure what the department does as far as the percentage, but in the contract from the Cooperative Endeavor Agreement in 2018, it stated 2% per year on our portion.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll vote on the substitute motion. Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote. Yeah, just put me as a yes vote.
What happened?
I don't know what I did wrong.
There you go.
Thank you, Amanda.
So I'll just zip that in into one line item and then bring the other ones back.
Four for, 5 against.
Okay, so the substitute motion fails. We'll now vote on the original motion. Do we have any further discussion on the original motion? Yes, ma'am, Ms. LeBeau.
I'd like to make a substitute motion.
Yes, ma'am.
I need the numbers. I propose that we approve line items. Can y'all tell me the? 52, I'm sorry. 52 through 73, with the exception of 56.
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Dr. Aguilar. So we're taking away one item, 56?
Yes, sir, 56.
Okay. Any public comment on this substitute motion? Any board comment on this substitute motion? If not, then I'll call for a
I'll
vote.
just-
I'm sorry. Dr. Chassel?
This is the items mentioned except for 56?
Yes, sir.
Except, so this is including 55?
Yes, sir.
55. Bear with me 1 second, President Angel.
Sure.
Make sure I'm reading it correctly. So Schedule 1 is going to be approved and not Schedule 2? Does that sound correct? Mr. Dugas?
The Schedule 2 would be brought later.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
So let me say this, just so the board can hear this. I would truly prefer to get reclasses brought to me separately because there's inherently a group of folks in our system that don't have the same capabilities to argue and lobby for raises. And even though it's deserved, and even though it may be time or we're correcting something, I would rather the corrections brought to me separately. I'd rather the requests brought to me separately, that, well, this particular person is actually working 244 days versus 225 and whatnot, for whatever the reasons are, because there's an unrepresented group of folks in our system that don't have these capabilities. And inherently, the people that are bringing this to us also represent them as well, but I never see a certain class of employees on this list. I always see central office workers, which I truly understand that you're worthy, but just once I'd like to see janitors, cafeteria workers, and maintenance workers, and it's a possibility that they've been on here before in the past, but so I would prefer that we would leave these two schedules alone as of right now, even though they're substitute motion, everybody has a right to make their motion. I prefer we leave these and then we take this as totally separate items on a separate day or even later, because this is inherently improving folks for salary increases of $6,000 and $12,000 and $1,200 and $900 and $800 and $1,100 and $1,000.
Ms. LeBeau?
And while I agree with you, Dr. Chasson, I do believe there is an increase in the budget for those individuals. I agree. We don't hear it enough. We don't get it. We don't advocate enough for the people who are doing some of the most important work in our system. So I agree with you. I do, however, believe that that even without a salary study, I could argue that we are not able to attract and/or keep individuals in a certain department, which is what's on Schedule 1. To me, it's a finance issue. And so that's the only reason I bring it up, is that I understand that this is not comparable to what people can do in the private sector. And I believe in order to make this department function properly and have the right number of individuals, I think we do have to make you know, I think we do have to consider that we won't be able to do it. We're not going to be able to attract the competitive and or the individuals that we want to employ in this certain department unless we make a, you know, some kind of concession on increase in their potential salaries. But I agree with you in every aspect that, you know, everybody is valuable, everybody needs to be advocated for, and everybody needs an increase, you know, in those departments that you talked about.
Any other comment on this? Yes, sir, Dr. Shesso?
Are the people up for the reclass, are they, do they also apply for the 2% increase as well?
Yes, sir. And I would like to, not in response to anything that you've said, but just for clarification for our support folks, yes, to Ms. Reed, it is 2% is for everybody. But the next line item, 53, crafts and trades pay scale, our custodians and our cafeteria workers are part of that as well. We did see the need for the additional 4.7% to bring them up. So that's a 6.7 for that particular group of people, just for clarification.
You still, Dr. Shesso, you, okay. If there are no other comments from the board, I would, Madam Secretary will vote on the substitute the second substitute motion.
For, 5 against.
Okay, we're back to the original motion. Any further comments on the original motion? If not, we'll vote on the original motion. Madam Secretary will call for the vote on the original motion by Mr. Latchley.
That the board approves the staffing portion of the proposed 2022-2023 general fund budget summary line items 52 to 73 and authorizes the administration to move forward with the school-related staffing hiring process for fiscal year 23. I made the motion, you seconded it.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Okay, so we have we're back to the original motion. Mary, you gonna second the original motion? Okay, once again, Madam Secretary will call for the vote.
Five.
The motion carries it. And We'll move on to, yes, sir, Dr. Chasson.
Mr. Hammonds, let's see. With a passing vote of this nature, does that automatically set forth the salary increases automatically by default? Or can the board take a look at this at a separate time? I know it passed, but, you know, once someone's paid something, then it can't be then taken away. So I was curious, does this automatically become binding to us?
Well, it does unless it's changed by the board. Now, this is for the 22-23 school year, so it wouldn't go into effect until July. So I'm assuming that any changes that the board wanted to make between now and then could be accomplished.
Okay,
To change what has been done tonight.
thank you.
Any other comment? If not, we'll move on to item 2.3. Matt?
That is the proposed budgets for Series 1100, which was attached. Are there any questions? These are the cost center processes where the budgets are rolled forward from last year, and then cost center supervisors are given a chance to reorganize their budget or request increases or decreases, which go through an approval process of a committee and then to the superintendent to get recommended to the board and then reviewed in series. So this will be the first series of the 1100 cost centers.
Okay, next one.
This will be the proposed budgets for the 1200 series cost centers.
$2.5.
This will be the proposed budgets for the 1300 series cost centers.
Yes, sir. Mr. Centeni?
Mr. Dugas, I get confused where the insurance office is in the general fund budget. Is it still 1585 or is it somewhere else?
The insurance office is its own fund. It's Fund 85. It's a budget.
No, not the self-funded insurance fund. I'm talking about the insurance support office.
Which cost centers?
That's not entirely paid for out of Fund 85, right?
1202.
1202. All right, thank you.
Matt, go ahead.
Which one we won, the 1200 or 13? I'm sorry. Say the
Mr. Angel,
0.5.
could I ask a
Yes, sir.
question about the 1100 series?
Sure.
So, Mr. Dugas, I see that under legal services that the budget originally was $235,000. The adjusted baseline budget showed an increase of $391,000 for a final proposed budget for legal services of $471,000. Are you expecting that our legal expenses will level out at $471,000 as compared to the original budget, which was some $250,000? Thank you.
Yeah, that's is that the board? Who's in charge of that cost center? That's the superintendent's cost center. We have seen an increase consistently in this line item.
My question was, are you expecting this to continue at that level of expenditure for legal services?
Yes, because it's been that way for the last 2 or 3 years.
Ms. Early, if you'll come up and speak to how we came to that, please.
When I got here, I looked at the prior legal fees, and it they hadn't been increased in 5 years. I only look back 5 years. So last year when I got here, I took a 5-year average to increase it, and then again this year increased it based on the averages of what we spent on legal fees. So there's no, I mean, it's just based on that. And I'll let you guys know that we are seeing a downward trend at this point in time because of the fact that we have less litigation. I guess with COVID and our kids not being in school, and then kids only being in partially, we didn't have the buses and the students out and about to be sued or to, you know, to cause accidents. So we are seeing a downward trend right now. So hopefully it doesn't get to that for a while, but in speaking with our third-party administrator, they're seeing increases across the board too. So this is simply an average to try and get things where they are, so we're not having to go back to the budget to Matt to get more money.
Thank you. Could you maybe prepare for us a document that has been somewhat purged so that we don't see confidential information, and kind of give us, you know, a summary of the expenses that have occurred this fiscal year to warrant the increase?
For legal fees?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Matt?
Okay, so we have a question, if you can let us know like which cost center item, like it'll help us find it faster. So I'm sorry we were fumbling a little bit on that. So we have the 1300 series. I believe we had any questions on that one?
Yes, ma'am, Ms. LeBou.
I was asking about the bus attendants. How many of those do we employ? I see it's,
Which cost center?
I'm sorry, call center, 1300. I don't even know how to tell you numbers. 711, 712, 711, 802, 711, 815.
1309, that's, yeah, Mr. Watson.
So,
Yeah.
so currently we have it's like 58 bus attendants.
Okay. And this is increasing that number by? Or I guess my question is, what percentage of the buses have bus attendants? We're increasing that because of the need for it, or is this an increase in their salary?
So it seems to be just a increase in the salary.
Okay.
Because the trend will continue. We have some that's actually required, that's on special ed buses, and also we have some for discipline.
Okay. And do you feel that's sufficient?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Any other comments on this item? If not, Matt, take the next one.
Okay, well, the next item is 2.6, proposed budgets for the 1400 series. Next item is 2.7, proposed budget for the 1500 series.
All right.
Next item, 2.8, the 22-23 proposed group insurance fund budget.
All right.
Any questions on that?
I just have one.
Yes, ma'am, Ms.
Does this
LeBou.
include that reclass that we voted on, or that will increase this figure?
Trish?
It may be on already.
No, ma'am, it doesn't. It
That
does
is
not
the
include
general-
the
that was-
reclass.
The reclasses are a general fund expense. It was not included in Fund 85.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Mr. Angel,
Yes, sir.
are we indicating or proposing a possible rate increase for health insurance?
No, not at this time. Trish, would you like to comment on that?
Sorry.
No, sir, Dr. Aguilar. No, HUB is not making that recommendation right now.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we would like to point out that there is one-time ESSER money in this budget of about $1,450,000, which ESSER is providing for the COVID-related health insurance expenses that were incurred by the system. Item 2.9, discussion and/or action concerning the proposed budget for the 2019 A construction fund. This is the construction fund that we're trying to complete all the projects in by April, but that will not happen. But we are okay with the IRS guidelines because we have substantially spent at least 85% of the money. So that's why this budget was added later, so that we can finish the projects in this fiscal year. We think that most of these projects will be finished by December.
All right.
The next item is 2.10, and that's an employee services item. Discussion or action concerning the 2022-23 retention stipend for classroom teachers.
President, I'd like to make a motion that the board approves the one-time retention stipend as detailed in the document attached to this agenda item for classroom teachers who meet the listed criteria.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on the motion? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
A little bit different this time. Put you over here.
Okay. Julia Reed, President, Lafayette Parish Association of Educators. I just want to speak to these proposals. They are wonderful proposals. These numbers, along with the 2% increase and what the state is trying to pass, is finally beginning to approach the worth of the educators of our school. I've personally worked at 3 of these schools, and I can speak to the passion and dedication of the teachers who teach at these schools. They are worth every penny that we spend on them. And the students at these schools deserve the best teachers that we can get in our region. And so our organization wholeheartedly supports these stipends for students at these schools, for teachers at these schools. Our only concern is, as I've mentioned when we did the COVID stipends last year, is around attendance requirements and unfairly not excluding certain types of leave, such as maternity leave, care for small children. Our concerns with this are threefold. One, with the fairness of it. When you don't exclude maternity leave, you are inherently, and you don't mean to, discriminating against women. Men do not experience pregnancy, and therefore would never have to ask for that sort of leave. And so it seems unfair. On top of that, we have yet to receive pay equity in our country between women and men. And one reason for this is something called the Motherhood Penalty, where after a woman has children, she experiences usually a dip in her pay, whereas fathers go on to usually experience increases in pay. And this is not the fault of the Lafayette Parish school system, and I don't blame you guys for that, but this is something that could contribute to that problem, one reason why we haven't reached pay equity. And then on the purpose of the stipends, which is to attract teachers to these schools, I think by not including these carve-outs, you are blunting the purpose. We want to attract established teachers to these schools, not beginning of their career year 1 to 5 teachers. A year 1 to 5 teacher who doesn't have a family can teach for 2 years, take the $5,000, and they have no strings tying them to the community, to the school. It's easy for them to leave the profession or to go somewhere else. And so this might be more attractive to that person than it would be a person with a family. I actually had several teachers reach out to me over the past couple of days that they felt that it was unfair, that they were being punished for having a family. And so I worry that it would blunt that. And these students deserve established teachers, not first year, second year teachers who are still learning to be teachers. Under-resourced students need established, experienced teachers. And then I also worry about the damage to our reputation as a profession that is friendly to families. When young people are considering this as a career, I don't want them to look at us and think, well, You know, they don't value me as much as they might value someone who doesn't have a family, and they might choose another career that they feel would value that. So we want to ask that you acknowledge that they are of the same value as a educator who does not have a family. I can give you an example. A teacher reached out to me. She had a baby, and she's never missed more than 5 days in the past 5 years. But because she has a baby now, she's ineligible for some of these stipends, even though this will not affect her attendance at all for the next 2 years. So I just wanted to ask if we could show some consideration, that we can prove that teaching is an attractive profession. It is a family-friendly profession, and that Lafayette Parish School System values all of their educators. Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Latchley.
President Angel, I'd like to see if we can make an amendment to the attachment in Section A. The teacher must be a returning employee or a new hire or in-district transfer between August 3rd, 2022 and September 30th, 2023, who fills a full-time classroom teacher position at one of the following schools, and then they're listed. Right now it says May 26th, 2023. I'd like that date changed to September 30th, 2023.
That's an amendment to the motion on the floor?
It's an amendment to the attachment. So, right. It's a motion to amend the attachment.
Okay. Dr. Chazon, can I assume that's the second?
She seconded the motion itself. Right.
You want to make that part of the original motion?
Correct.
Okay. And it's okay with you? Second, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, because thank you for the email, Julia. Is maternity leave and FMLA leave, is that defined within the leave that you're trying to define within this document? I didn't know if leave was the right term that would include maternity leave, or if that's a separate definition that this doesn't encompass.
That is separate. However, I would like Mr. Hammond's, I know that he has some words of wisdom regarding all of these different items. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the board, one of the luxuries that I have representing multiple school systems is I get to see multiple school systems grapple with the same issue. And in this particular case, obviously, it's what can you do to recruit and retain teachers. And I have looked carefully at the proposal, as I have looked at proposals in other parishes as well. And what I have discovered is that there is no perfect plan. There is no one document that can cover every conceivable situation that can arise, particularly when you have a school system of several thousand employees. And so one of the things that I was going to recommend before you vote on the motion is that there be a supplement to that motion that simply say that when we have those unusual cases, those emergency cases, perhaps those maternity leaves, the other situations that are out of the ordinary, that instead of trying to craft the document that could cover every possible situation that could occur, which would be virtually impossible to do, that you give the superintendent administrative authority to handle those cases on a case-by-case basis. And I think that that would be in the board's best interest. I think it would be in the superintendent's best interest, and I think it would be in the best interest of the employees. And so at some point in this discussion, I was going to propose that as a supplement to the original motion, just to simply say that for those cases that do not fall squarely within the provisions of this document, that the superintendent be given administrative authority to deal with those situations.
Mr. Latchley?
I would have no problem adding that to the motion.
I'll second.
All right. Amanda, you need time to put that in there? You got it already?
Go, Amanda.
I have a follow-up.
Yes, ma'am.
Is
Ms.
it
LeBeau?
imperative that we vote on this meeting, or could
No.
we defer until April so that we can craft the language in the way that we want to make sure that it's open-ended enough to give the superintendent authority, but not open-ended enough to where we completely have lost the purpose of encouragement for these stipends?
Yes, we could pass all of these tonight, or we could pass them in April, yes. Or defeat them. Yes, sir. Okay.
I've conferred with my associate. Thank you.
Has the conference concluded?
Yes, it has. Thank you very much. I
So-
just wanted to see if it was imperative for teacher recruitment that we pass this now
So that
or
the
wait
re- The
later.
remainder of the board members know. I don't know what you all talked about, but we have our job fair on April 9th. So we would really like to have these things
Right.
to offer and attract folks to our district.
So in giving her the authority, are we giving the authority to recraft the document in a way that she can put it before them on April 9th without these concerns? I guess
Absolutely,
is
but-
making
but
sure
if-
that's what the authority that we're also granting.
If the
in this
board
motion.
would like to add the maternity leave, the family I mean, certainly you can do that tonight, or, I mean, it's at your wish of what you direct us to do.
Can I ask, can we just edit this one and take out a sentence and add a sentence? Okay, so do I need to make a motion?
No, we can amend mine.
Okay. Do I need to make an amendment?
Just amend it. What do you want to add?
Okay.
Yes, sir, Mr. Centini.
I would suggest that so there's a time-sensitive element here
Right.
with the recruitment here. There is also some time-insensitive elements that I think we're all thinking about: Family Medical Leave Act, maternity leave, dates. I would suggest that we approve them and then just put them on the agenda for April. You can always modify with those things that are not dependent on something that's happening next week. That's all I had to say.
So if I may offer this particular one, and correct me if I'm wrong, the retention stipend would not go into effect until school starts in 2020, in the upcoming school year. So if you wanted to defer this one in particular, that would be fine. It's the recruitment and the returning one that would be most imperative that we have for the April 9th job fair, if you all want us to work further on this language.
All right, is there any other discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I'm just gonna, I guess I would like an explanation of why this particular document requires a compass evaluation rating and then says if that's not available, we'll go to the evaluation, and why the other document just requires an evaluation. Is there somebody that can explain that to me?
I'm trying, I need to review Dr. Rabelais, if you want to offer some. So on here, Ms. LeBeau,
Sorry, so 210 requires either, or it first asks for the overall compass evaluation rating being either effective, proficient, or highly effective. And then it says if that's not available, they'll do to, they will go to then at that point the compass observations. However, the second stipend only mandates the compass evaluations, and it doesn't require, it doesn't actually require the rating. Or am I reading that wrong? Is one the rating?
so when you say the second one, are you talking, are you
I'm
speaking
sorry,
of
in-
returning or recruitment?
The second one is 211.
211, the returning.
They both say returning stipend.
So I will speak to just real quick, because I'm still trying to figure out the 1 versus 2, but for returning, just a reminder that some of the SLT data, some of the testing data, some of those other things that we would use or be a part of, teachers, that doesn't become available to the summer. So that's why we needed some language that would allow us to use the ratings and metrics that we do have for teachers at the close of the year. So that's what that difference is.
On
Okay,
the
so-
retention, Ms. LeBou, and
Mhm.
if we're trying, these could be new hires. That's the difference. This could be brand-new teachers coming in that have no data prior data, that they're eligible for the retention, but the returning is specific to teachers that are currently teaching for us this year. So we would have those different pieces of data on them. What we won't necessarily have is the VAM data, which is based just on student growth. If that data is not released in a timely manner or earlier in the summer, then we would go to their overall observation scores, final evaluation.
The observation scores for the retention, correct? Because that's how it reads. Returning, it requires either the evaluation rating or the observation, and then the retention only requires, is it just the rating or the observation?
The observation if the data is not available.
Okay. I guess it just seems backwards to me that we would have the rating versus the evaluation, but as long as you feel like that's covers the right data. Okay.
Any other questions or comments on the motion? If not, Madam Secretary will call for the vote.
Can I ask one question before we vote? I thought, did Hannah make the motion to add in FMLA leave and maternity leave, or no? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Broussard?
So Mr. Broussard, if I may, we've talked about the sustainability of this. Certainly if it's successful and effective, we would work with the board to prioritize funding. What we do know that is, in the meantime, it's certainly worth the effort because the academic gains that kids could make in the next 2 years with a high quality teacher in front of them is definitely worth us giving that a go. But if it is effective, then absolutely we would work with the board to identify funding to continue to recruit the best for our children. That's okay. We've thought of that, absolutely. Yes, sir.
Nine, for, none against.
Okay, thank you very much. Motion carries. We'll move on to item 211. Matthew?
Employee service item, discussion or action concerning 22-23 turning stipends for classroom teachers.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir, Dr. Shusso.
I'll defer to Mr. Santani.
I move that the board approves items 2.11 and 2.12 and direct the superintendent to place items 2.10, 2.11, and 2.12 on the agenda for the next board meeting.
Second by Mr. Latchley.
I'll second.
Okay, any public comment on the motion? Yes, ma'am.
Julia Reed, Lafayette Parish Association of Educators. Just wanted to reiterate same concerns about this one, especially since the returning teacher stipend refers to attendance in this school year. And so you would be penalized not only for maternity leave, but also it doesn't carve out COVID leave either from the beginning of the year. I just wanted to raise those concerns. We still do support these stipends. I did just want to raise the issue, though, that money is great and teachers deserve every penny of this. But also, I would encourage us to look at also the other side of the equation. I don't know if you saw the results from the United Way summit they had. I wasn't able to attend, but I did talk to some educators who did go. And money does come up, but there are other things that come up besides money and teacher retention. You know, workload, feeling like they are a valued part of the community. And money is a great place to start, but I just hope that we can do some more work around the softer aspects of the job. The students in Lafayette Parish deserve the best teachers. You know, I'm a little biased. My son's going to be coming to Lafayette Parish for the first time next year, and I want him to have the best teacher because I know that a happy teacher is a better teacher, and what's good for teachers is good for students. Thank you.
Any board comments on the motion? Yes, sir, Dr. Chasso.
Mr. Santani and the seconder that created a word of the motion, would you mind, and I know this is coming back to us at the April meeting, would you mind making a friendly amendment to the returning stipend classroom for teachers to eliminate, I guess that's Roman numeral 1, eligible for a voluntary transfer pursuant to board policy file GBM?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. It was requested by staff.
Ms. LeBou?
I'd also like to ask if you would amend the motion to include to amend the document paragraph D to say, this applies to any type of leave taken for any reason except for professional leave and jury duty and or unless approved by the superintendent as under the discretion of the superintendent.
So I would suggest, so the reason I said that, add it as agenda items for the next meeting so that everybody can collect their thoughts and speak with the attorney or whoever to make sure we get the language narrowed down instead of trying to come up with it off the top of our head here tonight. That's one of the things that's not time sensitive, right? Because the 2022 school year hasn't finished yet. And so we have ample time, but I want to get the superintendent out and I want to show our teachers and our potential teachers that we intend to spend this money, but that there will be some minor changes here, including, I think, what Ms. Reed has told us tonight.
Okay, I just want to make sure this wasn't going to be a deterrent for people who you're recruiting, maybe returning teachers next year, but.
And I would like to say that if you all would consider adding to give me some discretion on this, because we do have teachers right now in some of these identified schools that are absolutely working on transfers. We would be able, I would like discretion to be able to say, okay, these were COVID days, these were those different types of leaves that Ms. Reed spoke about, and not have to wait until April 13th in the event that they're actually going to interview for other jobs or go to other districts.
I think everybody's in agreement. Any other questions or comments on the motion? If not, we'll call for the vote. think it was stage 2. All right, we have one more item, 212.
That's it.
Oh, that was it? Oh, that's right, that was both of them. Meeting is adjourned.
No, Mr. Angel. Mr. Angel. We just need to know if we need to have the optional meeting on the 19th, if there's any reason to have that meeting. No. I mean, it's scheduled right now, but we have a meeting on the 25th to present all the budgets. The one on the 19th was an optional meeting. Yeah, continuation.
Mr. President, I would suggest we keep it on the schedule just in case any of us gets contacted by any members of the public with questions or concerns about the budget. We have one other opportunity to make changes before we proceed with final adoption. Does that make sense?
All right.
Thank you.
We could. Or the next time we meet.